The tension hit before the wheels even left the runway. Diana adjusted her cashmere shawl as she glanced toward the front of the plane. First class had its own rhythm. Whispers of private equity deals, the clink of wine in crystal glasses, the hushed entitlement that came with $200 tickets. It was her sanctuary, one she'd earned, or so she thought. But when the tall black man entered the cabin, wearing a fitted tracksuit and a quiet smile, Diana's jaw tightened. He didn't look like he belonged, at least not by the unspoken rules she lived by. He nodded politely as he passed her seat, his frame commanding and posture relaxed, like a man who'd done this 1,000 times. Still, she couldn't help herself. She leaned toward the flight attendant, voice barely above a whisper. "Excuse me, is he supposed to be here?" The words came out before she considered them, before she could recall the seminars at work, the HR trainings about unconscious bias. None of it mattered now. Something about his presence, it stirred a discomfort she couldn't explain. Or wouldn't. The flight attendant, a woman named Carla, blinked twice. "I'm sorry?" Diana motioned with a subtle nod. "That man, the one in 2A, I didn't see him board with the rest of us. Are you sure he's in the right section?" Carla's eyes hardened in an instant. "Yes, ma'am, he is." There was no mistaking the tone, cold, clipped, professional. A tone that said, "You've crossed a line." Diana flushed and sank back into her seat, fumbling with her seatbelt. 2 rows ahead, the man placed a duffel bag into the overhead bin with practiced ease. His movements were graceful, deliberate, the kind of grace that comes from years under pressure. Diana tried not to stare, but she couldn't help herself. The moment stretched, awkward and thick with silence, until he turned around. His eyes scanned the cabin casually, then paused, right on her. Not in anger, not even confusion. Just a quiet, measured gaze. A knowing look, the kind that says, "I've been here before, and I'll be here again." Something in Diana's chest tightened. She looked away. The engines roared. The plane began to taxi. Across the aisle, a businessman opened his laptop. A couple clinked champagne glasses. And in 2A, the man adjusted his seat, leaned back and put on a pair of Bose headphones. Diana fidgeted. She wanted to forget it, move on. But it was like the moment had stained the air around her. 30 minutes into the flight, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have a very special guest flying with us today. Please join me in welcoming a legend in both sports and business, Mr. Magic Johnson." Diana froze. The name hit her like a slap. She turned, slow and stunned, toward 2A. He took off his headphones just as the applause started, gave a little wave and a warm smile to the scattered claps around him. Some passengers reached for their phones, others whispered excitedly. Diana shrank into her seat, heat crawling up her neck. Magic Johnson. Not just some man, a 5-time NBA champion, a mogul, a philanthropist, a man whose name opened doors she could never even knock on, and she had assumed. She closed her eyes. Suddenly, her seat in first class didn't feel earned. It felt exposed. Diana stayed still, staring at the safety card in the seat pocket, like it might rescue her from the weight pressing down on her chest. She thought about saying something. An apology, maybe, but the words wouldn't form. What would she even say? "I didn't recognize you." That wasn't the point, and she knew it. The point was, she hadn't even tried. The silence around her felt like judgment. Each polite smile from the other passengers, each chuckle at Magic Johnson's quiet charisma, made her sink deeper into herself. She was suddenly aware of how loud her doubt had sounded, how quick her suspicion had risen. Carla, the flight attendant, passed by again offering drinks. When she reached Diana, her voice remained courteous but cool. "Would you like anything, ma'am?" Diana hesitated. "Just water, please." Carla nodded and moved on. Diana felt it again, that disconnection. Not the kind that comes from class or money, but the kind that comes when someone sees through you. Carla had seen it. Magic Johnson had definitely seen it. And maybe deep down, Diana was seeing it in herself now too. Across the aisle, a woman in business attire leaned toward her husband. "That's really him," she whispered. "Irvin Magic Johnson, can you believe it?" He nodded. "Man's a legend." Diana stared out the window. The sky stretched endlessly, blue and empty. She thought of the first time she'd flown first class. She'd taken a picture of her glass of Prosecco just to post it online. A little flex, a little "look at me now," but no one took pictures of her anymore. She wasn't new here. She was expected here. And with that came something darker, entitlement maybe, or fear of losing status, or both. She remembered how she used to talk about fairness, about inclusion. She donated, she voted, she followed the right accounts. But when tested, truly tested in the quiet, unglamorous ways that revealed who you really were, she had failed. In front of her, Magic Johnson was laughing with Carla. His laugh was big and warm, the kind that made people feel like they belonged. Not forced, not performative. Just real. Diana watched him in profile, the sharp jawline, the gentle eyes. He looked at ease, like a man who had been doubted, dismissed, underestimated, and moved past it all. She wondered what he was thinking. If he'd already forgotten her face, if he had learned to carry these kinds of moments like an old scar, still there but not bleeding. She shifted in her seat, restless. Her phone was in airplane mode, but she opened the Notes app anyway. Started typing something, anything that might be the beginning of an apology, a way to say "I'm sorry" without sounding like she just wanted to ease her guilt. She stared at the blank screen, deleted the note. In the front of the cabin, Carla leaned over to whisper something to Magic Johnson. He chuckled, nodded, then stood and reached into the overhead compartment. When he turned around, he held a small duffel bag, unzipped it, and pulled out a Lakers jersey. It was signed. He walked back to the young boy in seat 4D, whose face lit up like Christmas morning. People clapped again, murmurs of "wow" and "that's amazing" rising around the cabin. Diana didn't clap. She didn't move. Because she knew now, this flight wasn't about who had the bigger seat or the fancier bag. It was about grace, and she hadn't brought any on board. The flight was just over an hour from landing in Atlanta, when Diana finally unbuckled her seatbelt and stood. She didn't have a plan. She just knew she couldn't sit there any longer, stuck in her shame while the rest of the cabin moved on without her. The aisle was narrow, but the distance to the lavatory felt like a stage. She kept her gaze straight ahead as she walked past Magic Johnson's seat. He didn't look up, not that she expected him to. Inside the cramped restroom, she locked the door and leaned against it, hands gripping the small sink as she stared at herself in the mirror. Who was this woman? The answer didn't come, just her reflection, mid-40s, sharp blazer, immaculate makeup, a picture of professionalism, until today. She splashed water on her face. It didn't help. The ache wasn't physical. It was something deeper, harder to reach, a fracture inside her that had been there longer than she wanted to admit. A knock on the door startled her. She opened it slowly and stepped back into the aisle. As she turned toward her seat, her eyes met his. Magic Johnson was standing just outside the galley, stretching his legs. He gave her a polite nod, the kind that offered no invitation but no rejection either. She paused. "Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice low. He turned slightly, waiting. I just wanted to say," the words knotted in her throat. "I owe you an apology for what I said earlier, or implied. I made a judgment I had no right to make." For a second, he didn't answer. Then he gave a small smile. "You'd be surprised how often it happens." She winced. "That doesn't make it okay." He studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he said gently, "It's not about me, ma'am. Not really. It's about what you carry into the moment." She nodded slowly. "I know, I think I'm starting to understand that." He didn't offer absolution. He didn't dismiss her guilt or soothe her discomfort. But he didn't walk away either. Instead, he said, "It's never too late to check your baggage." There was no malice in the words, just truth. Diana felt her eyes sting. She gave a quiet nod, then turned back toward her seat. The cabin was quieter now, dimmed for the approach. Passengers were dozing or scrolling through screens. The boy who got the jersey was fast asleep, curled against his father's side, clutching the prized purple and gold fabric like a blanket. She sat back down, her shawl slipping slightly from her shoulders. She didn't fix it. Carla came by with one last round of service. This time she paused. "Can I get you anything?" Her tone had softened, just a little. Diana shook her head. "No, thank you." Carla gave a small nod, not forgiveness, but maybe acknowledgement. The captain announced their descent. The seatbelt sign chimed. The hum of the engines changed pitch. As the plane tilted gently downward, Diana looked out at the patchwork of lights beneath the clouds. She thought about what Magic had said, about what she carried. She'd always considered herself self-aware, educated, woke even. But maybe that was the problem. Awareness wasn't enough, not if it didn't shape how you moved through the world. She glanced toward 2A one last time. He was leaning back, eyes closed, arms relaxed, at peace. Not because of her, in spite of her. She exhaled. The shame was still there, but so was the lesson. And this time she intended to carry it with care. The plane landed with a soft jolt, the wheels kissing the tarmac as passengers stirred awake. The cabin filled with the rustle of bags, the chime of seatbelts snapping open, and the collective urgency to disembark, as if arriving at the gate made everyone suddenly remember who they were outside of this flying capsule. Diana stayed seated. She usually stood the moment the seatbelt light turned off, poised and ready, wanting to be among the first out. But this time she didn't want to rush. She wasn't avoiding anyone. She just needed to move slower, to be more present. Magic Johnson rose from his seat with practiced ease. He pulled his duffel bag from the overhead compartment and slung it over his shoulder. The boy in 4D noticed him again, now fully awake, and waved shyly. Magic smiled wide and gave him a fist bump as he passed. The boy beamed. The passengers ahead filtered out. Some whispered to each other, too intimidated to speak directly to him. A few asked for selfies. He obliged patiently, one at a time, never hurried, never stiff. Diana watched it unfold, the dignity of it. Not just the fame, but the humanity. He didn't need first class to remind people of who he was. When it was finally her turn to step into the aisle, she gathered her things with more care than usual. Her hands weren't shaking, but they were deliberate, like someone who didn't want to forget what just happened. Outside the jet bridge, the terminal buzzed with airport noise. Rolling bags, muffled announcements, the scent of cinnamon from a nearby pretzel stand. Magic stood off to the side, taking another photo with an airport employee, then checking his phone briefly before walking toward the exit. Diana followed at a respectful distance, unsure if she would speak again. Then she saw them. A small group of men, all in crisp suits holding up signs with names. One of them spotted Magic and stepped forward quickly with a wide grin. "Mr. Johnson, pleasure, sir. Your car is right this way." As Magic walked away with the man, Diana paused by the window that overlooked the pickup lanes. She could see her own rideshare approaching in the distance, a grey SUV with her name glowing in the app. She tapped her phone screen, then looked up, only to find Carla, the flight attendant, walking past. Diana hesitated, then spoke. "Carla." Carla turned, surprised. "Yes?" "I wanted to thank you for how you handled everything, for keeping it professional. I know I put you in a bad spot." Carla studied her for a moment, then offered a small nod. "Appreciate that." There was a silence between them. Then Carla said, "A lot of folks would have just pretended it didn't happen." Diana gave a sad smile. "I almost did." "Well," Carla said, adjusting her tote, "it's what you do after that counts." And with that, she was gone, merging into the sea of travelers, just another face in the terminal. Diana stood still. Her driver had arrived. She could see her name, misspelled slightly in block letters on the dash, but she didn't move yet. She thought of how easily she'd mistaken grace for intrusion. How often people were sized up before they even spoke. She remembered Magic's words, "It's not about me, it's about what you carry into the moment." She'd carried fear. Next time, she wanted to carry something better. With her bag slung over her shoulder and heart a little heavier but a little clearer, she turned toward the car. 2 weeks later, Diana sat across from her daughter at a cafe near Midtown, the kind with reclaimed wood tables and oat milk everything. They hadn't seen each other since the flight. Diana had debated telling her what happened. Now, over cappuccinos and a quiet lull in conversation, she finally did. So she began stirring her coffee even though she didn't take sugar. "I need to tell you about something I'm not proud of." Her daughter Naomi looked up, curious. "Okay. I was flying back from Dallas, first class, and I assumed a black man didn't belong in the cabin." Naomi's eyebrows rose. "Wait, what? I thought he didn't belong there." "I asked the flight attendant if he was supposed to be in first class." Naomi blinked. "Mom." "I know," Diana said quickly. "I didn't say it like that, not exactly. But that's what it meant. That's what she heard. That's what he heard." Naomi leaned back in her chair. "Wow, that's a lot." Diana nodded. "It gets worse. The man was Magic Johnson." Naomi's mouth dropped open. "Are you serious?" "I didn't recognize him. I just saw someone I didn't expect, and I assumed." Naomi went quiet. Diana braced herself for judgment, for disappointment. But Naomi's voice was softer than she expected. "You're telling me this now. That means something." "I couldn't stop thinking about it," Diana said. "Not just because I was wrong, but because it made me realize how much of this lives inside me, quietly, invisibly. And when I was tired or annoyed or whatever, I didn't question it. I let it speak." Naomi looked out the window, watching people hurry past. "I think that's how it works. It hides until it doesn't." Diana nodded. "And what scared me most wasn't that I had the thought. It was how normal it felt in the moment." Her daughter looked at her then, really looked at her. "Did you say anything to him?" "I did," Diana said. "Not right away, but I told him I was sorry." Naomi tilted her head. "How did he react?" "He didn't dismiss it. He didn't let me off the hook. But he didn't make it about him either. He said, 'It's not about me. It's about what you carry into the moment.'" Naomi sat with that for a while. "That's kind of profound," she said. "It is," Diana agreed. "And I've been thinking a lot about what I carry and how often I pretend it's not there." Naomi took a sip of her drink, then smiled faintly. "You know, I used to think you never got it. That you lived in this bubble of perfect resumes and polite dinner parties. But maybe you're starting to see what I've been trying to tell you for years." "I think I am," Diana said. "I'm not who I want to be yet, but I want to be better." They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that isn't empty but full of something settling between them. Recognition, maybe. Or respect. Naomi reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "That's all I ever wanted." Outside, Atlanta buzzed with its usual rhythm. Cars honked. Someone laughed nearby. A couple argued softly about directions. And inside the cafe, 2 women, one younger, one older, shared a quiet, necessary reckoning. A story that began in judgment had ended in truth. And if you made it this far, maybe you felt something too. If you did, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Because the next one, it's already waiting for you, and you're going to love it.